I would love to hear a little bit about your background prior to Medumo. I got to learn a little bit of that while you were here for the kickoff last month, and I just think you have an incredibly fascinating background. And I think a lot of your circumstances in life probably to some degree help set the stage for you to be a successful founder yourself, just in terms of your ability to acclimate to different circumstances and locations and all that good stuff. So to the degree you're willing to share, I'd love to hear a little bit about Adeel pre-Medumo.
Happy to share. How much time do we have?
Well, you don't have to go all the way back to elementary school.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So prior to Medumo, how about this? I'll go backwards and then you can stop me whenever. Okay?
All right, that'll work.
Prior to Medumo, I was actually building another company called Picmonic.
Mm-hmm.
It was basically an e-learning platform online that was helping medical students, nursing students, basically allied health professionals kind of learn and retain information better. So we developed this platform that allows people to use pictures and stories to help them kind of solidify some of their knowledge about a particular tough subject like pharmacology or microbiology. And I was building that while I was obviously going through my medical training. So background, I'm a physician, but decided, midway through that I really wanted to build companies to make a bigger impact. And then prior to medical school, what really inspired me to want to build companies was I had very fortunate experience working with a venture capital firm that specializes in early stage investments in medical devices and pharmaceutical companies. And I totally just got bit by the entrepreneurial bug, realizing instead of being an investor, I wanted to be on the other side of the table, which is the entrepreneur hustling to try to make a difference in this world. And then prior to that, obviously, a lot of soul searching and growing up in a different country, fortunate enough to kind of move out to the US at an early age and, learn about, how to maximize the opportunity that this great country has offered. So that's kind of the journey backwards.
That's cool. So where'd you go to high school? Your high school experience alone is just completely fascinating.
I went to two different high schools. When I first came to the U.S., I started high school in Glendale, California. Was doing English as second language courses, trying to learn the language and assimilate into this culture. And I know you wanted to hear the story about me coming. Basically, I moved out by myself. My parents couldn't come out with me, so they got me an apartment across the street from my high school, so that I could just walk to school. And I was basically had to promise that I wasn't going to let anyone know that I lived alone. Otherwise, so that's what happened. But it was a cultural shock and just a life shock. I had to survive or go home. And I think that really forced me to be tough and adapt. And I moved to Arizona, where I spent the rest of the high school in Chandler, Arizona.
Right. Yeah. And I just can't imagine that experience of moving to a new country and learning a new language as a teenager, how in some way that skill set did not translate to being an entrepreneur, because a lot of it's the same, just throwing yourself into something completely new and adapting and surviving, right? I mean, it's just surviving. So
I'm lucky I got that entrepreneur education training early on.
Yeah. That's right. Cool. So, all right. So Medumo, what's your elevator pitch for Medumo, just so people can understand what you guys do?
So Medumo offer an automated patient education, patient communication, and navigation platform, and specifically to hospitals to help them improve operational efficiency. Examples are reducing no-shows, cancellations, increasing referral conversion, and to provide a better experience for all of their patients. And that's to do so without requiring additional staff burden. So that would be the elevator pitch.
Right. And a lot of it is geared through patient education, right? Preparing patients for procedures when they come in. And I think you guys probably have data that shows when patients are more prepared when they come in, not only do they show up more often, but probably outcomes are better as well. Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So what's Medumo's origin story? I mean, how did that come to be? How did you think this is a problem that's worth solving, and let's try to create something?
Yep. So I had just exited my previous company, was debating whether I should dive back into medicine and be a physician again, or if I should start another company. It was in the midst of that decision that, both through kind of personal experience, being in the clinical world. At the time, I was shadowing and starting to get my clinical feedback underneath me, and was collaborating with a colleague and realizing, man, there's just so many problems surrounding kind of operational efficiency. Seeing the nurses, sitting by the phone every day, and unable to actually take time to perform their required clinical duties because they had to answer phone calls from the patients, and they have lists and lists of patients that they're supposed to call every day. It just felt like there was something that needed to be fixed. And I guess instead of going into practice again and seeing a patient at a time, my co-founder at the time and I saw an opportunity to leverage technology again, specifically software, to help solve that problem, that operational efficiency problem.
Yeah.
And of course, patient education has always been a passion of ours. So kind of marrying the two together,
right.
kind of our next calling.
Awesome. And you guys have accomplished quite a bit in a very short period of time with Medumo. So as you think about next milestones for your company and the things that you want to accomplish, what do you see some of those milestones as being, and how do you think HealthTech Arkansas can help you get there?
Yeah, I think, we, of course, I should let the audience know that we recently been acquired by Phillips. Great company, international company. Their model is their actual goal is to improve the lives of 3 billion people. And they actually have, believe it or not, they have a whole team at Phillips that will sit behind the scene and count the number of lives they're actually affecting. It's insane. Wow. I thought that was just a saying, but no, they actually
they track it.
And they're above 2 billion right now, which
wow.
To me, that sheer size and scale is just a dream, right? So for me, going into building companies and going into building Medumo was to impact lives. And right now, this next milestone for me is how do we truly leverage up Phillips's network and connections, and being able to take Medumo, this very small company still that's kind of tucked within a much larger company. How do we leverage that network and leverage the resources to be a part of that 3 billion lives mission?
Right. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's great. And how does HealthTech Arkansas fit into that goal? Because obviously leveraging the Phillips network is tremendous. That's great. How can we play a part in helping you get there?
Yeah, I think, what's really interesting is that we started out building this company in Boston, in New York, in San Francisco, and all these, highly diverse populated cities, if you will. And we thought, hey, that if we can succeed there, we can succeed anywhere. And then the more we build the company, the more we realize that diversity is an interesting concept in medicine, and that you really need to tailor the solution to different populations, and different demographics, and different healthcare settings, right? It's not just the health, it's the environment as well. And so Arkansas, I think HealthTech Arkansas gives us an opportunity to really learn about how to deploy our system and how to maximize the value of our system in a state where I would say the heart of America. You really get to see the main population. That if you could make a dent there, I believe we could make the dent elsewhere in the U.S. as well.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, and I'm glad you brought that up, because because I do think, and I've heard this before from other healthcare executives, right, which is the ability to improve medicine in the heartland. I mean, this is where it takes place, right? I mean, this is where so much of our healthcare is administered, is in places like Arkansas, with sometimes with patient populations that need patient education the most in order to improve their outcomes. So, yeah, I think it's fantastic that that you guys have this opportunity to not just talk with our providers, but actually plug in your software platform and engage with them through these pilot projects and try to improve their outcomes. And I'm looking forward to what comes from that, for sure. So so let's talk about entrepreneurship in general. You've been at this a while, and you probably get asked this by various entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs who want to start their own companies. What kind of general feedback do you give for people who catch that entrepreneurial bug and say, I'd really like to do this? I mean, you have accomplished what many entrepreneurs hope to, and which is to build a company that gets acquired by a large healthcare company, and that's fantastic. And that's just the first chapter of Medumo, I'm sure. I mean, you guys will continue to build that over time. But given that you have been successful to this point, what advice do you give to people who want to start their own company?
Yeah, it's a good question. Lots and lots of advice, but I would say what comes to mind is, I'll say two things. One is that the world of entrepreneurship, there isn't sort of a recipe, to be honest. Every company is different. I think every problem you're solving requires a little bit of creativity, and in a competitive world, it's all about being positioned in a unique way, whether it's business model or product or even the customer segment, entry point, etc. So I think because of how creative, if there's one formula to success, if we can call it that, it would be to, I think, surround yourself with people that help you. Right? It's ultimately what I realized through the last two companies is that it truly is a team sport where you could be the best engineer, you could be the smartest doctor, you could be, not me, but you could be the smartest doctor, you could be a technologist who really understands the problem. But at the end of the day, to build a company, so many diverse skill sets and experiences that I think the people that I've seen become very successful, that would be the one kind of consistent theme that I see, which is they really know how to sell their idea to people and promote them and build a team with them, and then drive towards the same direction. I think it's so much harder said than done. I mean, conflicts happen all the time. It's hard to find people who you can work 24/7 with. And so I think it's surrounding yourself, be humble enough, surround yourself with people that are much smarter than you, let go of certain responsibilities to others and really learn to trust. I would say that's like one thing that for entrepreneurs, because typically those who start are a little bit more intense, want to do it all. It's actually pretty important to do the opposite when you're starting to build that company. And then the other one would just be hustle, right? Because everything's different. There really isn't a consistent formula for success when you're building a company. So you just gotta be adaptive, not get frustrated, fail fast. All sorts of smart, quotes that people have said about hustle.
Yeah. And I love the hustle piece of it too. We've through two different angel funds, we've invested in about 40 different tech startups over the last 15 years, and I would say that is a common characteristic for success is just the people who just care enough and prioritize their startup enough in life where they're just always hustling. They're always trying to figure out how to overcome the next obstacle, how to pivot, make their platform better, how to get more traction, et cetera. So I think you're right about that. You know, speaking of barriers and challenges, I kind of like to ask you about yours with Medumo. I mean, HealthTech Arkansas, we're our own startup, right, as a program. So I can relate to that. I can relate to building something from scratch where there is nothing and the various obstacles that are there in your path. When you think about Medumo and the company you and your team have helped to build, what are some of those bigger challenges that you've had to overcome with Medumo?
Yeah, we've had to pivot as well. I mean, like I said, a lot of uncertainties with the company, even from the start. You know, were we a patient education company? Hospitals weren't interested in paying for patient education. How do you justify the value you're bringing? How do you measure it? I felt like all along the way, we had to keep going back to the drawing board again and again and again. And I think the biggest challenge were, believe it or not, I go back to that advice, which is the people. I think the biggest challenge were keeping everyone motivated even through some of these rework and pivots and hardships, because ultimately it's the team that achieves the results. And it was tough. I mean, when you go out, the engineers spent months and months building a prototype, and you bring it out to the market, and they tell you that your baby's ugly. The engineering team and say, we screwed up. We gave you the wrong requirements to build, and now we have to start over. That was really, really challenging, and it kept happening. So how do you keep people's faith in you and in your vision when things aren't working? That was the biggest challenge, and keeping the team together, that was also difficult. I mean, a bunch of young, hungry entrepreneurs in themselves wanting to do their own things, and how do you say, hey, look, let's really build this together and believe in us. You have lots of future. This could be a platform for you. It could be a springboard for you to get into other companies. There's so many different ways and weapons you have to pull out of your tool bag and say, all right, we're doing this together, and we're gonna all stay together until the end.
So looking back on that now, how dicey was it? Like, or did you at times feel like this is kind of precarious and I'm not really sure whether Medumo is going to be able to get over the hump or not? Or did you always have faith and in your ability to pivot and make something that does resonate with customers?
It was always sort of this balance where, your faith just has to be a little bit stronger than that. And so I was fortunate in that even during the lows, the faith was just a little bit stronger that I convinced myself to keep going.
Right.
Faith was always there, like blindly. It was a constant evaluation. And
right. Yeah. Cool. So let's talk about accelerators for just a minute. I mean, you guys were part of Mass Challenge Health Tech. You probably, I think, been a part of other accelerators as well. You maybe didn't ever contemplate that Medumo would be part of another one before when you joined HealthTech Arkansas. There may be some people in the audience who are founders who are evaluating various accelerators, whether it's ours or others. What advice do you have for founders when they're trying to figure out is the value proposition for me in a given accelerator, is it worth it or not?
Right. So when it comes to accelerator, I feel like I could write a book about this. We've gone through so many. I mean, we've been through Y Combinator, we've been through Mass Challenge, we went through the Phillips HealthWorks program, and now HealthTech Arkansas. And prior to that, with my first company, I also went through a couple of accelerators. And it's so interesting now that I'm looking back. Right. What motivated us to join all these accelerators were actually different reasons. And looking back, I realized the best advice I could give is know why you're joining an accelerator. Don't just do it because you feel like it'll help you get to that next level. No, like you really have to be a little bit more specific with your reasoning. And for us, HealthTech Arkansas had 2 or 3 main reasons. One was that we saw how great the people were and their willingness. There was sort of this fire inside everyone's belly when you talk to them, like you, for instance, and others, all the hospitals that were representing the program, that they wanted to make a difference, right? And that fire and that sort of unified mission helps us as a company really know that there's skin in the game for our counterpart, know that they want as much as we want to make something happen, to make something work. And that's really exciting. There are other accelerators that are not like that, but they're more about, hey, let's really promote you and help you get funding, or let's really teach you about entrepreneurship. So if you're a first-time entrepreneur and you really want to just get a quick kind of boot camp or crash course about how to build a company, there are accelerators or incubators out there specifically for that. So you just got to know what you want. For us, for HealthTech Arkansas, was that we wanted to actually have pilots and projects up and running with Arkansas hospitals, and we got exactly that with this program. So it was a good match and mission driven, and it was aligned with what we wanted to do.
Good. That's excellent. Yeah, and I think always with accelerators, you have to you have to balance what you're giving up versus what you're getting. And I do think that's good advice to drill down and specifically think about what do you want to accomplish in a program, and can they help us get there. I think that's really good advice. All right, so now that Phillips is your new boss, how does life change for you in your role as CEO of Medumo?
Yeah, surprisingly, it hasn't changed that much. Phillips has kept his words about keeping us kind of operationally independent. So when we were in the process of being acquired, we had discussed, how the company was going to look afterwards, and I wanted to know, going into it, eyes wide open. And they said that, the goal of the acquisition really is to build out a whole new function within their diagnostic precision diagnosis division. And they were going to just empower us to keep doing what we're doing. They saw that whatever we were doing was actually successful and gaining traction, and they were excited to nurture that and continue to see us blossom. So they didn't want to interfere with us. They said, look, we'll give you your own budget. We agreed on the budget, and hiring, firing authority, all of that, I still retain. So I honestly feel like I'm still running the same company as before, just now with more
budget.
Yeah, budget. And instead of reporting to my board, which I had a board before, I'm reporting now to Phillips, or the Precision Diagnosis Ventures team.
Right.
So it's been really great in that I'm still doing what I love, and I'm still working with people that I love, and nothing's changed in that respect. So it's been really great.
That's fantastic. Will you continue to have some sort of advisory board or something like that at Medumo?
Yes. So we had to. It was an opportunity actually for us to have a conversation with all the informal and formal advisors during the acquisition to say, all right, now we're part of Phillips. What do you think? Are you still to reassess fit? Some of the advisors we brought on specifically to help with connections and network, probably not as necessary anymore now that we're part of Phillips with vast network. But there were still advisors, clinical advisors, for example, that we were working with to enhance the product with specific specialties, and we continue those relationships.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So I think we're bumping up against time. Let me just say, Adeel, I think what you guys are doing is fantastic at Medumo, and it's not what I think necessarily, but more importantly, what our hospitals think. And they chose you guys for a reason, because they think that you can move the needle for them. They believe that you can bring patients into their facilities better prepared. You can reduce their no-shows, improve customer satisfaction, et cetera. So we're excited about everything you're doing with us. For people out there who want to learn more, for providers who want to learn more, how do they find you?
I think definitely website. They can email me, adeel@medumo.com. Or adeel.yang@phillips.com, whichever one they prefer. And of course, through HealthTech Arkansas, I'm sure you can help make the connection. I'm also on social media, so they can find me there as well. But I'm very operational right now, so
yes,
probably work best.
Awesome. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time. I'm looking forward to seeing you next month at Health 2019 in Las Vegas. That'll be fine.
Yes,
cool. Sounds good. Thank you so much for your time.
Very welcome. Happy birthday.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank
Talk soon. Bye bye.